Here's how I power rank the frauds for the Sixers. If you're on the fence and you don't, if you're someone who dabbles on NBA Reddit and you want to get in the mix and you want to call people cowards and frauds and you're just not really sure where you should be pointing the fingers and who you should be calling out, let me help you out. I'll power rank them for you. At number 5, surprising appearance on the Sixers fraud power rankings, I have George Niang. Who played 4 minutes in Game 7, was 0 for 1 with 1 block, but got a technical foul when he grabbed Jaylen Brown. When Nyang was sitting on the bench and Jaylen Brown, goes after the ball and he's by the bench and Nyang just, honestly, if I'm being completely honest, this was like 1981. It was kind of a smooth play that he gets away with and no one notices. 2023, 0% chance you're getting away with that, and he should be smarter. But the reason I put him on the fraud power rankings, TJ, is because the second I saw that, I made the connection that George Niang is a New England guy. He's a masshole. He's born in Massachusetts. He went to high school, I think, in New Hampshire, I want to say. I think Vermont or New Hampshire. I think it was New Hampshire. So my tinfoil hats is just go. My conspiracies are going crazy that he's doing this on purpose. He's throwing there's something amiss about this, because as I pointed out on the show a million times over, all roads lead back to Boston. Everybody has some sort of connection to New England, and George Niang was no exception. And I was wondering to myself, if I remember right, the Sixers were up at the time. Was this a move? Basically. Was this a sabotage? Was George Niang sabotaging the Sixers because I think they were winning at the time, and 12-year-old George Niang came out in that moment and he was like, I want the Celtics to win. I just want to touch my favorite player who happens to play for the Boston Celtics. I'm going to touch Jaylen Brown. Is that what happened? I don't know, but it felt fraudulent to me. I didn't like it at all. You can't play 4 minutes and do that. You can't play 4 minutes to do it.
You know what Nyang means in English?
I don't. What?
Mother.
Really? On Mother's Day? Wow. Well, that he should be held to a higher standard then, If you're going to be named Mother on Mother's Day, you should not be getting technical fouls playing 4 minutes. You should not have more technical fouls than made field goals. That's just a general rule that I live by. You should not have more technical fouls than made field goals. If that is the case, you definitively had a bad game.
Yeah. What is that? How does that compare to a trillion?
A trillion? That is worse. That's worse.
The 0.0001.
Yeah, exactly. At number 4, I put Doc Rivers. A lot of people want to blame Doc Rivers. I don't blame you. His face, as I said at the earlier, he is a meme. The befuddled face of Doc Rivers, blinking into the abyss. He can't believe what he's seen. That really is ultimately why NBA coaches get a lot of, because if we're being completely honest with ourselves, most people that watch basketball don't really know what the hell they're watching. It's a lot more difficult to. Let me put my JJ Redick hat on it for a second. Let me see. I'm smarter than all of you. Okay, as a guy who played basketball, I'm smarter than everybody. No, I do think that most people don't really understand basketball at the same level they do football, because football play stops, we reset, all the pieces go back to the starting line, and and so each play you can kind of have a better understanding of what went wrong. And basketball's a little more fluid. I'm the same way watching soccer. I watch soccer, I have no idea what the hell I'm watching, and the goal gets scored, and I just blame it on the guy that's standing next to the ball as it goes through the back of the net, and I'm like, why? Mostly the goalie, and you're like, why didn't you stop that? I feel like the same thing happens with basketball, where people don't really fully grasp the fluidity of the game. So ultimately, if you see a situation like the third quarter of Game 7 of Celtics Sixers, the get out of jail free card, if you want to be a critic, is just blame the coach. And I usually don't have a problem with that, and certainly with Doc Rivers I don't have a problem with that. But the reason I think people always just go to the coach is because there is an epidemic amongst NBA coaches that they just have bad faces. They just have doofus looking faces. And I think when you get enough shots of guys the wheels are falling off and it cuts to a coach and he's got a doofus look on his face, I think it's just human instinct to be it's that guy. It's that guy's fault. Why is this guy not? Why is that guy?
He'll do a long stare, past the camera angle too. They'll get a good 4 or 5 second zoom in on him in between one of the 76ers players getting the ball stolen from him and then dunked on the other end.
And it's the same, Joe Missoula, same thing. When Joe Missoula doesn't call timeout at the end of games and it doesn't work out, then it's very easy to build this idea in your head that Joe Missoula's just got a doofus face and he's just staring into the abyss and he has no idea what's going on out there, and fire this man. You know, maybe that's why NBA coaches get fired all the time too. They're fired constantly, dude. I saw a stat the other day about Michael Malone that he's the 4th longest tenured coach at his franchise, which blew my mind. It feels like Michael Malone's been at Denver for like 3 years, and he's the 4th of all the NBA. It's Pop, it's Spoelstra, it's Steve Kerr, and then it's Michael Malone. He's number 4. And I was like, my God, this is crazy that they just cycle through these coaches like this. But I have Doc at 4 because I do think he, like of course this falls on Doc. Like this keeps happening to Doc. He's 0-6 in his last 6 trips to the conference semis. But the difference in my mind between Doc and the rest of these bozos at this franchise is at least this man has touched success. At least he smelled success at some point in his life. So like I think he's got that for him. He won the 2008 NBA championship, which, like, as more time goes on, it starts to be a little more confusing as to how Doc Rivers coached him to this. But then also you look back on that roster and you're like, how did they only win one? But at least this man at least he has like something to point to say like, this isn't my fault. Like, I've done this before. It's everyone else's fault. But at the same time, a narrative is certainly building that he is 0-6 in his last 6 trips. Also, Doc Rivers, I think being named Doc and taking the job in Philly was a mistake from the start. I think the second you try to be Doc in Philly when Dr. J is obviously Doc, that was doomed from the start. And now it leaves us questioning, TJ, is Jay Wright to the Sixers the most obvious move of all time? Is this like when Jay Wright, when he retired from Villanova, I called it in the moment that this is a Brad Stevens move, that he wants to go to the NBA, but he doesn't want to. Not that Brad Stevens took a year off, but Brad Stevens, I think if the Oklahoma City Thunder called Brad Stevens to come away from Butler, he would not have left. It was the Boston Celtics. It was like the one or two or three franchises in the NBA that he was like, I can't turn this down. Because Brad Stevens ultimately did not want to be a bad guy to Butler. I feel like that was Jay Wright with Villanova. It was like, if I'm being completely honest, I don't want to coach college anymore. I want to coach in the NBA, but at the same time, I want to make sure when I leave Villanova, I'm still a good guy. I don't want the Villanova fans to hate me for turning my back on them. So I'm going to finesse the shit out of this. I'm going to take 1 year off. I'm going to wait for the Sixers to fire Doc Rivers. Then I'm going to slide in, not even have to move houses, and now I'm the coach of the Sixers. And now Villanova fans love me more because now I'm the head coach of their pro team. Nothing's more obvious, and it's not going to happen. They're going to hire some other freaking bozo. They're going to hire Mike Budenholzer or something when Jay Wright's right there. Monty Williams, come on down. You're the new coach of the Sixers. Why is Jay Wright not the coach right now? I don't understand. Why have they not announced this already?
You got to at least call him, I would assume, even if he doesn't actually want to keep coaching. But I think it'd be foolish for them not to at least try.
I see a lot of people trying to argue that Jay Wright's done coach. Like I hope not. Like that he's very happy with his life and he loves doing TV and he just loves being a handsome man. I hope not, dude.
I hope he doesn't love his life.
I don't want him to love his life, dude. Be miserable. Get back into coaching. No, he was awesome. He's great for basketball, and I want him to. What I really want Jay Wright to do is what I've wanted Stevens to do for a while, but Stevens obviously isn't interested in my ideas.
So interesting, too, with Boston. I think that there was a chance that the Celtics would have reached out to Brad Stevens if they didn't win this series, right?
Yeah, but Stevens is done. I know for a fact Stevens is done coaching. I know for a fact. Like I know. It's. I'm. He's done because I'm the one saying he's done.
That's Rico's number one go-to whenever there's an opening in the NBA. Dude, he's like, well, they got to get Brad Stevens on the line right now.
That's my go-to for any opening. Yeah. Any opening of any career of anything. So if I'm waving the white flag on Brad Stevens, it's done. I've learned too much, TJ. I've asked around too much. I've learned too much, and I wish I didn't. Being naive is sometimes ignorance is in fact bliss, as it turns out. But I want Jay Wright to coach Team USA. I want that to be his full-time job. I think that's how he gets back into coaching, but he doesn't have to be miserable on the day-to-day grind of coaching. He's just the guy. I've wanted this forever. I don't understand why we don't have this. I've been ringing the alarm bells for a while now that the rest of the world is catching up to USA. We're still better than any individual country, but a time will come. Like France is not a joke anymore. France is. If joeLL Embiid plays for France too, we're in trouble. Like I still think we're favorites, but Victor Wembanyama is he is Frankenstein to me, and I think we've created a monster, and I think we need a guy to take over as a full-time USA coach and stop letting Greg Popovich coach the Spurs and then pop over and coach Team USA and then go back to the Spurs. Jay Wright, coach, you either get Team USA or the Sixers. But either way, I want to see stars and stripes. Or at least stars. I want to see red, white, and blue. I want to see the stars on your quarter zip that you're wearing, Jay. Please, for the love of God.
That announcement would probably come like this summer, no? Because Olympics are next year in France, ironically enough.
Oh, they are in France?
Yep.
Yeah, we're. I'm worried. I'm worried. Now that you said that, I'm actually worried. Let me see here.
I would assume those camps, or whatever tryout process happens for that, is like maybe not. Maybe it's next summer.
I was looking something up, but no, never mind. All right, forget it. I was gonna say something, but we'll move on. Number 3 on the Sixers fraud rankings, I put James Harden. I think he's higher for a lot of people. I think James Harden is an all-time playoff choker. We know this. I think in the totality of what James Harden's career is, he should probably be number 1. He's a Hall of Fame playoff fraud. But he also gave the Sixers 2 wins kind of in this series, and he sucked in Game 7, and he was bad in Game 6 and Game 7. I'm not trying to say he wasn't, but the reason I don't have him as number 1 is because he played well in 2 games, which is frankly, I thought when he played well in Game 1, I was like, well, Harden did his job. He could rest now. He can chill out. Now it falls on Embiid and then the role guys and. You want Embiid to win 2 games for you. You want Harden to win 1, and then you want the role guys to win 1 as a collective. That would be my philosophy if I was the Sixers. Harden basically won 2 games for this franchise. I think expecting more out of one of the all-time playoff chokers was a fool's errand. And in that regard, I didn't have him higher because I didn't think that I think if you actually expected James Harden to deliver 7 straight games for the Sixers, that was a you problem, not a James Harden problem at this point. So I had him at number 3, but he does deserve to be in the top 3. He's on the podium. At number 2, I put Daryl Morey, who somehow thinks he's the smartest guy in every room he walks into. He whines about every call that doesn't go his way. He's supposed to be like... He's supposed to be like the Theo Epstein of basketball, where he's like, I've solved everything. I'm smart. I'm like a kid genius that's like, all of you dumb former jocks that are running franchises are idiots. I have an algorithm that's going to crack the code. And we're like, oh, really, Daryl? What's your algorithm? He's like, you see that line right there? If you shoot behind it, you get 1 more point than if you shoot in front of it. And we're like, really? That's your algorithm? That's your fucking algorithm, dude? Which all that's fine and well if it works. It doesn't work. This man has been running NBA teams since 2007. He's had one in the time that he's been running NBA teams since 2007. TJ, as long as the Fort Wayne Mad Ants have been around, that's a long time now. This man has been running NBA teams. He's had 1 team that's realistically had a shot at winning the title. 1. It was the 2018 Rockets, and they were ultimately kind of an indictment on his style of play when they go 7 for 44, literally 7 for 44 from the 3-point line in Game 7 at home against the Warriors. And they were so pot committed to the 3-point shot that as they're just bricking 27 threes in a row, they can't do anything else, and they're like, we just have to keep shooting because this is how our team is constructed, and this is what D'Antoni and Daryl Morey have built for us. I don't understand how we ever treated this guy as though he's like some sort of basketball savant. Again, he's like the Jason Tatum of GMs, It's like he's that's an insult to Jason Tatum. I apologize to Tatum. I apologize to all the I crossed the line. I went too far on that one. That was the Boston hater going overboard there because Tatum is far better than Daryl Morey. Far better. I don't understand how he got into this position where like he is the guy that has solved basketball when he frankly has done nothing. He's done nothing. None of his teams have ever made the finals, much less won one. And he's only ever had 1 team that was even close to like being taken seriously. And again, as I said, I don't get how this keeps happening. He's the man loves James Harden. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. And he will continue like when he retires from he'll make the Hall of Fame. He'll like get like books written about how he revolutionized basketball. And to that I say no. To that I say, Daryl, I'm not buying your book, and you did not revolutionize basketball. So there you have it. Number 2, I don't get how he skates by in all these sort of conversations. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe I'm listening to the wrong people. But Daryl Morey is like they get James Harden. Like, you want to blame it on James Harden? Why don't you blame the guy that brought James Harden in? Why don't you blame the guy that's like infatuated with James Harden and can't move past that?
I feel like they kind of knew what they were getting when they brought James Harden in too. It was like I feel like when that move happened, people were like, "Yeah, that's great," but you know how he is in the playoffs.
Yeah, James Harden's like James Harden's like I can ball out every so often, but ultimately I do this so I have money to in the offseason get fat and go to strip clubs. That's why I play basketball. Like, you know this. I'm 33 years old at this point. It's no secret. This is who I am. Do you love me or don't love me for who I am? And Daryl Morey's like, we love you. Come on down, come play for it. And then like somewhere along the line, it doesn't work out because it never works out. And then everyone blames James Harden, which is like, fair-ish. But at the same time, like, James Harden's like, what did I do? I'm just being James Harden.
Right. Like, at what point does your reputation of doing this every single year outweigh the good that you do in the regular season? I don't really understand.
James Harden's like, I never asked for this. I just woke up one day and everyone said, we expect you to lead teams to titles, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I just want to go to strip clubs. That's all. He's got to be
one of the 50% that Pat Bev said doesn't actually love basketball. He's got to be in that group.
I think he's just a make shots guy. I think he's a guy that, like, when he comes out hot, and I do think he enjoys that. Like, when he's cooking, I think he enjoys it, and I think he's like, this is super fun. But when he's not, what is it like coaches say? Like, you have to hate losing more than you love winning. Like, that's like some sort of, I think James Harden is not wired that way. I think James Harden is indifferent to losing, but I do think he loves winning. I do think when things are going well, he's like, this is fucking awesome. But when things are going poorly, he's like, I'm still rich, and now I get a longer vacation. Number 1 is obviously Joel Embiid. How is it not Joel Embiid? The only MVP to never make a conference finals. The whole point, as I said earlier, is like the whole point we gave this man the MVP award over Jokic, which I don't have a problem. I still don't have a problem with. I said when it happened, like, if you want to give it to Embiid because we're tired, we have fatigue with Jokic, be my guest. I think Jokic is the best player, but whatever. It is good for the sport to get fresh blood in there. Michael Jordan didn't win 12 straight MVPs, and he probably should have, and LeBron didn't either. And like, I get all that. So like, sometimes you do want to just see someone else win it, and I don't have if that's all that goes into it, I don't have a problem with this. But at the same time, you cannot spend the last how many years, 2 years, 3 years, campaigning openly for the MVP as though, like, you turned it into like that was the discourse of the NBA for a couple months there, where it was like Jokic versus Embiid, who is better? If you said Jokic was better, you were positioned as like an analytics nerd because you're like a guy who doesn't really get the game, because like real hoopers know that Joel Embiid is on another level, and Joel Embiid is that dog, and Joel Embiid does this and this, and Jokic is just this sloppy, doughy fat boy out there that's like huffing and puffing up and down the court. And like, these were sort of the ideas being tossed around. You can't like have that be what the season is, and then the playoffs get here and you shit the bed this poorly in Game 7. It was like he was nowhere to be found for most of that first quarter. With 3 minutes left in the first quarter, I think he started showing up. But from the start, he was like, it wasn't just like the third quarter when the wheels started falling off. Joel Embiid wanted no part of Al Horford. You can't get clamped up by a 37-year-old. Yeah,
that's a crazy sentence to say. Joel Embiid wanted no part of Al Horford. The MVP of the league wanted no part of.
2 years in a row, he's fallen off a cliff in the playoffs, and I get it that like he's playing hurt, and perhaps there's an argument to be made that like if Joel Embiid was wired differently, he wouldn't even be playing in these games, and he'd just be in street clothes on the bench, and like maybe part of us should be applauding him for playing through the knee sprains and playing through. He's banged up all the time. That's what happens in the playoffs, and like maybe that's to blame, but that's how it goes, man. Like, if you're going to be the MVP of the league and you're going to be on the court in Game 7, nobody wants to hear about you being injured or not. Like, if you're out there, you're out there. Like, we're not going to, we as fans are not going to come up with algorithms to figure out how healthy you are and like whether you're at 74% or do you feel more 81% today. Okay, so then how do we apply that to how many points you scored? Like, if you're out there, you're out there. If you're not out there, you're not out there. It's that simple to me. You're the MVP of the league. It's game 7, and you're out there just like, you know what the biggest, like, 'cause even if he was injured and he was playing through it and all this sort of thing, and he was gassed from the start, which was a problem in its own right. But the one play that stood out to me as like, this is fraudulent, and this is why you deserve number 1 on the fraud power rankings. The backcourt violation as the wheels were falling off, when Joel Embiid like just brings the ball up the floor, crosses half court, and then throws it back to James Harden without a care in the world for no reason whatsoever, just to completely, it was an own goal. It was like, what to have a play like that is it's beyond comprehension that the MVP of the league in that moment would do something like, and ultimately it was inconsequential and Boston would have won anyway and all, but like that was just a snapshot of like, imagine, like, take that play right there. Imagine literally any other MVP of this league doing that in a game 7 when the wheels are falling off and the whole team's looking at you saying, we need something. And you just kind of like lazily like huffing and puffing the ball up half court. You cross half court. You're not even trapped. You're barely even guarded, and you just like throw it in the backcourt and get a backcourt violation. It's like, I don't know. That was inexcusable to me, and like that was a great example of fraudulent behavior. So Joel Embiid's my number 1.
It's the interesting quirk of like the NBA announcing the MVP like during the middle of the playoffs, is you get to see like what guys are made of while they're still playing. Right. It's like if you're expecting somebody to be the most valuable player in the entire league, Game 7 in the playoffs is when they're supposed to shine the brightest and when they're supposed to like step up to the plate because they're that guy for their team. And to watch him like do the complete opposite, and maybe like you said, he might be injured, but it's interesting to like maybe the argument that they shouldn't announce the MVP.
They shouldn't. I don't think
they definitely shouldn't give you the trophy on the court before a game when there's a chance that you don't win the series.
They should do it when the MVP gets bounced. Wouldn't that be funny if they go into the locker room after your season's over
and they're like, yeah, it's just in your locker with like a thanks.
They wait till the season's over to announce. Him saying I can't do it alone in the post game press conference, absurd. Just absolutely absurd. And I get that like the quote wasn't as bad. Like when I first saw it, it seemed bad. The context, I kind of think I know what he was going for, but because I think the question, I think he was asked about like, do you want Harden back basically, and he was like, yeah, I want Harden back because I can't do it alone. But if I'm Tyrese Maxey, I'm like, bitch, what? Yeah. I'm right here, dude. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Like, they're more media trained than that too. They shouldn't be saying single sentences that can be taken out of context. But if
you're Tyrese Maxey, you're like, all right, if Harden leaves, dude, we're fine. Like, give me the rock. Like, let me. Like, I can be that guy, Joel. Like, that's what you would love to hear from your MVP and your face of your franchise. Not what he said. So
they should get Jimmy Butler.
They should. Can you imagine? I'd love to see a Photoshop of Jimmy Butler in a Sixers jersey. Someone whip that up. Send that to me. I'd love to see what that looks like. I wonder if there are any realistic looking ones out there.